Hello and welcome to the Bulls on Stools podcast. Joining us today for the entire show is the host of the LP podcast, a freelance writer for the Dallas Cowboys, former high school reporter for the Denton Record Chronicle, and UNT alumni, Layton Prater. Layton, how does it feel to finally be on the show?
I got to be honest, it kind of feels like a long time coming, right? How many times?
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we talked about this for a while, but you get me post-graduation. So maybe I have more wisdom to spread than I did a couple months ago.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into this more later, but I mean, you write for the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys. You know, we're not talking about the Oklahoma, we're not talking about anything over there, but the Dallas Cowboys. So, that's a pretty big deal. But we'll get into more of that later. But today is Tuesday. It's about to be Wednesday because we are all busy people and we run on late schedules. So it's basically Wednesday, June 14th, 2022. As always, we hope you're having a wonderful day today. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your day. If you have a great time and don't mind, please do post us, share us, or tell others about us. If you don't like what you hear, then simply tell no one. I'll address the elephant in the room. As the listeners may be able to tell, Anthony is not on the call today. He is doing big boy things with the Mavericks. We got a lot of the fools, I think the listeners will start to learn. A lot of the fools are actually not so much of fools as they think they are. We're all doing pretty big things. So, but Anthony had a Texas Rangers game to go to that was crossed over with the Dallas Mavericks. So we hope he's having fun and had a good time and was meeting a bunch of important people and doing a bunch of important things. But, the show must go on. Today is National Bourbon Day. I'll let the old man and the old men in the show speak on that. But for the lighthearted, it is also Strawberry Shortcake Day. So, Cullen, Layton, what are y'all's takes on those two very celebrated but totally different things?
Yeah, very different. I've never had strawberry shortcake, as I mentioned to you guys, I think pre-show. So I don't really have a lot of context on that. Maybe it's good with bourbon. You never know. Maybe you can combine the two and maybe it tastes well. In terms of bourbon, I am more of a tequila guy myself, but I do love me some good bourbon. Yeah, no, it's always one of those things. I feel like bourbon is whenever you get to that certain age, and Kevin, you might get that one day. But when you get to that certain age where you're just, you really just want to just have you go out nice, you're dressed nice, you're, ready for a good night out. Bourbon's always a good way to go. So I know there's some good bourbons out there. Personally, I mean, you could really no wrong with either. I don't think I've ever actually had a bad bourbon, to say the least. So that's my experience with it.
I mean, listen, I've never personally had the two together, but I feel like it's probably a pretty great combination.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, Cullen, I'm with you. Like, listen, I mean, I'm more of a tequila guy myself. I have had bad bourbon. You try enough, you're going to come across some that stink. But your point is well taken about, listen, you want to go out to the bar, you want to go out night on the town, maybe a nice dinner, have a drink with it. Bourbon's the way to go. And I don't recommend this to any listeners, but listen, if you have an extra fun night with some bourbon, it gets you through the night. You wake up the next morning and you don't feel great, have another shot. It got you through the night. It'll get you started the next day and keep on going. So don't recommend that, but I have heard that myth could possibly work.
I've heard that too. Yeah, not from personal experience by any means, but yeah, I've heard that too, definitely.
Yeah, we not confirm whether or not I have personal experience or not.
Right.
So.
Right.
I've heard something of the same from people in my people that I know. But of course, no experience with that whatsoever. But strawberry shortcake, on the other hand, I have a lot of experience with. I actually have some downstairs as I speak. It's amazing. I love it. Cullen, can't believe you never had it. I'll ship it to you if I must, but I think you can make it. Layton, I'm sure you've had some. You're human,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Do it with pie crust instead of angel food cake. It's a nice little twist on it.
I should give that a try. I bet you that's better.
Good stuff, man. It's good stuff. I've had it a couple different times, but like a real thin, like cracker pie crust, chef's kiss, delicious. Try it out.
Got to give it a test sometime for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe with some
Well,
bourbon. Who knows?
Yeah, not me. But let's move on to the feel good segue. Feel good segue, positive segue, whatever we're gonna call it, hype up, whatever. But I think we should have Cullen. Cullen, would you like to go first? What do you got
Sure.
going on that's making you feel happy lately?
Sure. So right now we are out of school. I'm not doing any internships right now in terms of sports related stuff. I do love doing this podcast and everything, but just working, going to school, all that stuff, just trying to get done. But I have used this time just kind of like with more free time on my schedule, not being like on campus and everything, to spend time more with my family. Treated them to lunch today. My mom and my brother, my stepdad's out of town today, so just quality family time. Sometimes you kind of forget when you kind of get into the swing of things, like how important those people are. So wanted to just show them how much I love them, and thought a nice lunch and everything. So spent the day with them really today, and yeah, that's my little feel good. So spending time with the folks. Yeah. Golf claps there.
It's always a good day to spend time with the fam.
Absolutely.
It's those kind of days never end bad.
Right.
They're good one. They're good ones to look back on. That's a really good positive that's going on for you right now, Colin. Just taking some time to yourself. Now, Layton, as I mentioned before in the intro, you are a busy man over in Frisco. So, what you got going on that's got you happy lately?
It's been a wild last month. Graduated UNT with honors just over a month ago. I guess technically yesterday. I graduated May 14th, and we just crossed over into June 15th after midnight. So graduated college a month ago, and then 3 days later, I signed my contract to be a freelance writer for the Dallas Cowboys. Very, very fortunate to be in that spot, and have a lot of people that were in my corner that kind of vouched for me to get there, and I don't want to say stuck their neck out, but obviously put in a good word for me. So I'm very, very fortunate to have people like that I made connections with. So listen, man, between that and moving on from school and kind of putting that behind me, it's bittersweet in a sense because like you said in the intro, I'm now a former high school sports writer, which I gave 3 years of my life to, in a sense. Got my foot in the door there, and had to say goodbye to that in order to move on. But took a lot of great things from that place, and being able to learn with hands-on and learning the beat and how to do things. And a lot of crazy stories come out of covering high school sports, which Kevin, you will figure out maybe soon enough, working with Dave Campbell. But yeah, man, this a lot of cool stuff that I've been able to do, and work's not done yet. Just getting started, fortunately. So,
Hey, I've heard some pretty great people say those lines. So yeah, I agree. It's just getting started. But I'll end it off here. But I already talked to the guys about it off air a little bit, but my first story for Dave Campbell's came out today. And it was, I guess it would be kind of an overreaction to say a surreal moment, but it kind of was, because it was like, I've had a blast writing these past few years, and I wrote in high school, and then I was a sports editor there, and I had a lot of fun writing in high school. And then when I got to college, I was writing for North Texas Daily, and that was fun. I'm still doing that. Had a blast, covering a lot of sports. Some sports I didn't think I was going to be covering, like track and field, which ended up really being a really fun beat to write that I was blessed with in my first year of school. So I was really fortunate to be given this opportunity to write for Dave Campbell's this in this summer, that I can hopefully turn into a job or some kind of long lasting position there at Dave Campbell's. A lot of UNT people are scattered throughout that system. So, but it was a really cool moment. I've made a few stories already. Just some didn't get through the publishing stage, and some were just kind of, hey, this isn't exactly what we're looking for. And so to finally get that one and to get it sent out was really, really rewarding. Obviously writing for Dave Campbell's is, up to this point in my life, the highest as far as credibility goes in publication that I've wrote for. They have over 90,000 followers. So my article came out around this afternoon, and it has over 50 likes, which it's not really that big of a deal, but in the journalism world, it's hard to get likes and clicks for articles. So that was a very happy moment for me. Just really kind of like following off of what Layton said, just really like gave me a good taste of what it was going to be about. And I'm ready to just keep going. I got 2 stories to write tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to learning more and getting these articles out and meeting and talking to all these freaking freaks of stud athletes that these people are. And it's a blast. And to see my first story go out and have some success was really rewarding. But on a more, I guess, fun note, I started golfing and got a set of golf clubs, so that's fun. I would like to say that kind of coincides with expanding my sports journalism career. I'd like to sign a potential future deal later on down the line on a golf course. So. But in all reality,
with the LIV.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that later on.
Right.
We'll get to that later on. Not making any trips outside of probably Fort Worth at this moment. So, but hey, just a new hobby. Got to keep it fresh. I've also been working out recently, so just got some good things going on right now. And I'm really happy about it. So, yeah.
Little golf club. There you go. Yeah, man. Don't sell yourself short. That's dude. I mean, hey, first story on a major publication. I mean, it's a big accomplishment, man. Big pride of you, not only from Layton, myself, but everyone, I'm sure, in your close circle. So, yeah, man. Congratulations.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Fun fact. Or I guess not really a fun fact, but a little funny tidbit. So when I first got the internship with Dave Campbell's, I don't know if I told you this or not, Cullen, but when I first got the internship with Dave Campbell's, my mom, of course, not being the sports fan that I and my father is, I worded that wrong, but whatever. She didn't know who Dave Campbell's was, and so she instantly thought of Earl Campbell's, like the Earl Campbell's sausage. And so the ongoing joke is that I'm supposed to supply her with free or discounted Earl Campbell's sausage, because that's just what she thought. Because when I said Dave Campbell, she was like, "You're writing for a sausage company?" And I was like, "Not Earl Campbell's, Mom." I was like, "Dave
Hey,
Campbell."
listen, if you want a fun fact, true story, my grandfather actually grew up very close friends with Earl Campbell and his brother growing up. They went to high school together. And I've got a picture of me somewhere when I was about 12 with Earl Campbell's Heisman from his year at Texas. I got a picture of it in his house that he grew up in East Texas.
Wow. Okay.
That is somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna assume that you have your horns up, right?
Oh, I'm not a Texas fan. Sorry, homie. Sorry, homie.
It's a waste of a picture. That's what that was.
No. Listen, you get a chance to take a picture of the Heisman, you take it.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
You
That's
did.
fair.
Just what
What
you did.
about-
For the record, too, on the sausage thing, I've had your mom's cooking, so that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world if you supply her with some food so she can cook more. Because your mom's cooking is awesome.
Yeah, so
So-
Layton, do you have connections with that Earl Campbell sausage, or
I
was
do
that
not.
just a meaningless picture and a meaningless comment?
I wouldn't
hurt
say it
my
was
heart.
meaningless. I would say it was a relevant comment given what we're discussing.
You just hurt my heart.
Oh my goodness.
Kevin, you're not the first. You won't be the last. I can't help you.
That's like saying, yeah, I went and met Clayton Kershaw, but I was wearing a Cincinnati Reds hat or Cincinnati Reds jersey or something like that.
I just felt as though it was relevant given that you were talking about Earl Campbell. I know you're a Texas guy.
No, it was.
Thought
I'm
I'd
just
thought I'd
messing
make
with you.
just a small flex.
I got the connection.
There you go. There you
No,
go. See, Cullen got it. He's smart.
The connection was there. I'm just messing with you. But I do have to ask, if you could go back and rewrite, would you put your horns up?
No.
Okay, well, that's just your
No.
fault, and there's nothing I can do to help you. So
I did not ask for it.
all right. Fair enough. Actually, real quick before we jump to our first sports topic, I don't even know what time we're at this current moment, but let's just real quick. I do want to give a quick shout out to my mom. Okay, I know we do a lot of mom shout outs on this show. But my mom has actually, I know, Cullen, you've tried my mom's salsa before, once or twice, I think. She is officially selling it now and trying to make a business out of it. We have made a couple $100 in profit these past few weeks selling the salsa. She's making different variations of it, including salsa verde, regular restaurant, but better than restaurant salsa. She's going to be dabbling in with making the Chewy's salsa that, they sell that Chewy's a jalapeno ranch, I think. And she's just trying to make it a little small business. We got her some printed labels. It's called Chunky Girl Salsa. And it's gotten really good hits. It's gotten really good reviews so far. So we're hoping to take it to marketplace. I'm just really proud of her for doing this, because it takes a long time, because this past weekend she did like 48 jars worth of salsa. She cans them, so she has to go through and boil them and seal the lid and everything, and she goes to the extra length to do all that. So just proud of her for doing that, and just having something to take pride in. So I just want to give a quick shout out to my mom for doing that, because it's been a fun experience too, because I'm the salesman, so it's fun.
You're a man of many hats over there, Kevin. You're a writer, you're a podcaster, you're a golfer, you're a salsa salesman. What can't Kevin Walker do this summer?
You're forgetting ex-baseball player.
Ex-baseball player as well, forgive me. Just things that are going to be beneficial to you moving forward, that's all.
Absolutely.
Baseball's beneficial.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I played. I get it.
Makes you strong mentally.
I mean, salsa salesman's pretty high up there, though.
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
right.
That's got to be the tagline on your resume.
LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, there
writer,
we go.
DCTF, podcaster, salsa salesman.
There you go.
My mom's salsa salesman.
Yes. Chunky Girl salsa salesman.
Yeah.
TM.
So, but yeah, seriously though, it's been fun. We've been basically putting out jars for sample at Walmart. not for customers, just for the employees of Walmart, and having them try them, and then people just been buying them and taking them home, giving us their opinions and everything like that. But that's enough. We crammed in a lot of food just for that little intro of a topic, but we're going to be talking about a lot of sports today. Listeners, I cannot guarantee you that this won't go over an hour. I do know it won't go the hour 45 that we did last time. We will make sure of that. But let's as I always like to say, let's take it over to the association. The Golden State Warriors, what are they? So we can go Golden State Warriors, the Dubs, the champs, but we could also say the Steph Curry-less Warriors win Game 5. They go up 3-2, but Steph was, I think, pretty safe to say, a shell of himself. He, for the first time since 2018, did not make a single three-pointer on 9 shots.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I mean, listen, I think, and I said this last night when they took this game, when they won this game last night. I mean, you look at this team right now, when we think of the Warriors, we think of, maybe the death lineup where there was Harrison Barnes, who was still there. And then they really elevated their game when they bring Kevin Durant in and add him to a team that won 73 games and what have you. And to me, if they're able to pull this off on Thursday night in Boston and get their 4th championship in 8 years, to me, this is the most impressive run that they've had during this trio's era between Steph, Clay, Draymond. And I think a lot of it is because you look the way the team's constructed. You have a Clay who is not the Clay that he was before because of injury. You've got a Draymond who can give you something in spurts, but it's kind of felt like in this series he's had more antics than he has production. He's fouled out in 3 of the 5 games that they've played thus far. And you kind of had Steph as the glue in the middle of it, right? He has the great performance in Game 4 in Boston to keep them from going down 3-1. But last night was the Andrew Wiggins game. And, Wiggins stepped up. This is a guy that a lot of people had given up on. He was putting up empty stats in Minnesota, former number 1 overall pick. But you're seeing guys step up and give them big minutes and big things. Not everybody's been consistent. Jordan Poole has not been great. Kayvon Looney's been hit or miss. But for the first time in a while, we're seeing this Warriors team put it together, and you're getting it from different guys. Like you said, Steph doesn't have a great night last night. Wiggins comes in. We know the story with Clay in Game 6. Does Clay step up in Game 6 and kind of put this team over the top? So to me, it's just a very complete team. It's not their best team ever, but given all of that, if they're able to pull this off, I would put this ahead of any of the championships they've won previously during this run.
Yeah. I can. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, I just want to ask Layton, would you say that this would be their most, if they did win this championship, would you say it would be their most deserved championship other than the 3-1 comeback?
I mean, I don't necessarily buy into the deserved aspect of anything in sports. I think, we've all played sports. I don't know if any of us really buy into the deserved aspect. I would say that, if they can pull this off, I would say it would be the most impressive. Obviously they were able to take 2 from LeBron and the Cavs. And, where was it? And I think it was 3, right? Yeah, they took all 3 of them from Cleveland. And obviously you win against LeBron and you've done something. But to me, I think at this point in their career, none of these guys are in their prime anymore, right? They're all, 31, 32, 33, hell, maybe even 34. And they're putting it together. And their role guys are guys that have never been exposed to this before. You've got a guy like Gary Payton, who has made stops to the G League left and right and been cut. You've got a guy in Andrew Wiggins who, for all of his talent, has never really been able to put it together. And you've got a guy like Jordan Poole, who was in the G League last year. You've just got a lot of different guys from a lot of different backgrounds. And I don't want to use the term spare parts, but you've just got guys who have never been there before. And they're kind of stepping up in different ways. But the main point is, at the center of it all, Steph is still in the middle of it. And that's always been the case throughout this run, whether there was KD, no KD. Iguodala wins the Finals MVP. Steph has always been the center of this. So I wouldn't use the term deserved, but I would absolutely say the most impressive.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you, Layton. So you had mentioned earlier when you first started talking that how they went from this 73 win juggernaut to adding Kevin Durant and basically becoming this unstoppable force when Durant was healthy. This team to me kind of reminds me of the original iteration of their team, and their tagline was the strength in numbers. Granted, that team had guys like Harrison Barnes, Sean Livingston. I think Andrew Bogut was a starter, hit and miss. And these guys are more younger. They're not as veteran laden across the roster. I mean, Andre Iguodala, whenever he gets minutes, it's kind of a shock at this point because of just how aged he's got. I still think Steph and Clay, I don't want to rule them out as potentially being out of their prime. I know Clay, he's coming off the 2 major injuries to his legs, and he hasn't had a full off season to really kind of regather himself yet. And, you know, may or may not be the player that he once was, but I still think he could get back to, you know, a solid contributor, borderline all-star. In terms of Steph, yeah, he didn't have his best night last night, as you mentioned, Kevin. First time he didn't make a 3 since 2018. It's an incredible stretch by, I think no one would argue, the greatest shooter in NBA history. It's just, to me, it just really showed how Boston just didn't seem like they were ready in the moment. If you go back in that game last night, where they really struggled was early in the game when they got off that slow start. Tatum, I don't think, took a shot until like 7 minutes left in the first quarter. And then late in that game in the fourth quarter, it just seemed like their kind of offense fell apart. They're a young team. They're going to be competitive in the East for a while. And Golden State just simply had those, you know, championship DNA, those moments. Like you said, Draymond getting those key buckets whenever he needed to. Steph, even though he wasn't hitting shots, he was still creating for other people. I think he had like 8 assists last night. So I think that could ultimately be the difference in the series. Again, we still have two games left, one of them being in Boston. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of where they go from here. But definitely was impressed by the fact that the Warriors were able to win despite Steph not having a big night.
So I have a question for both of y'all. I think we can all agree that Steph Curry is one of, I think it's pretty safe to say a top 5 point guard of all time. But everybody wants to talk about the legacy that he's going to leave. Obviously, he changed the game with shooting, you know, best shooter of all time, and all that jazz. But the one piece that everyone says that Steph Curry is missing, which this is not my opinion, I think that he's won a lot of championships. He's done amazing things. He is the current holder for all-time threes, and I think that he you know, no doubt Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. But I think the one thing that everyone is saying is he's missing that Finals MVP, and that is something that everybody has been chirping about and talking about. But you know, having a poor performance in Game 5, do you think that would, you know, say he goes off for 40 and they win, or 35 and they win? Do you think that the poor performance in Game 5 will ultimately cost him?
Layton, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I'll take it. Listen, I think it's his to lose at this point, right? And I think it goes back to the point I made a second ago. Outside of Steph, where has really the production come from, right? Like, I know we just talked about how they've had guys who have stepped up and had good nights. Wiggins had one last night, but, you know, name me the guy who has been as consistent as Steph has on that Golden State team thus far. And you can't. I would be hard pressed to find one. So it's his to lose. I think, you know, we've heard a lot of this conversation about, well, what if Golden State loses the series and Boston wins? Is Steph still deserving of the MVP? No, I don't believe you can give the Finals MVP to a player on the losing side. I don't think you can, regardless of how good that he was. But in the event that they do win this, and I have maintained from the beginning that I did think that they would win this series. I think Steph gets it regardless, because it would take an absolutely bogus series from anybody else on that roster to overtake him, right? The only reason Steph did not get those finals MVPs when KD was there, or the year that Iguodala got it, because he guarded LeBron, even though LeBron nearly averaged a triple-double in that series, is beside me. But that was the only thing that really kept Steph from getting that. In terms of legacy, his legacy is set. Right at this point, his legacy is not going to be downgraded. He can only go up from here. Would a Finals MVP and another title help his case? Absolutely. But his baseline has already been set legacy-wise. So, in all honesty, he can really kind of only go up from here. I don't think losing in the finals would necessarily diminish his value or his legacy in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it on the head there. Steph, to me, yeah, his legacy is set. He can only add to it at this point. The fact that I think I was looking at a website earlier because I was just curious after the odds after the game. Steph was favored minus 400. Wiggins was the next closest Warrior at plus 1600. So Wiggins still would have a long way to go if he were to win Finals MVP. I tend to also agree too. I think the media, we all know like awards can also be somewhat media driven, especially in the NBA when it comes to MVP, maybe like, comeback player of the year, what have you. And I think the media in the back of their heads, they're like, yeah, Iguodala allowed LeBron to score 35 a game. We gave this guy the MVP. Probably should have given it to Steph that series. So I think I would be shocked if Golden State wins either game 6 or game 7, and Steph Curry is not going to be the one holding the 2 trophies. Doing the interview afterwards. He deserves it. He earns it. He's still averaging over 30 a game, leading the Warriors in assists. And I mean, again, even in his worst game, he still was able to contribute and still be impactful on the floor. So, I mean, was it a good game? No, we're not trying to defend it, but I don't think it hurt his chances to win Finals MVP in the slightest.
Yeah, so we're going to go on to talk about Game 6 or the preview for Game 6, but I follow Bleacher Report betting on Instagram, and I saw that they had screenshotted and sent out a post that was basically a chat between a group chat driven by betting, and basically the guy was like, "Hey, I need a lock for tonight," and somebody responded with Steph over 0.5 threes.
Wow. Wow.
How good do you have to be for somebody to feel confident to make that bet? Right?
Yeah.
I think anybody in their right mind would make that bet. Steph over a half for threes.
Yeah. I mean, you said it, Kev. That's like, for any other player, that feels right. For Steph, that feels low.
It's criminally low.
That's ridiculous. I can't think of a night where Steph Curry wouldn't make a 3.
Was that a bet for Game 5?
Yes.
Oh, what a poor sucker!
You want to know his favorite? How much it was favored?
I would love to know.
50,000.
I mean, listen. I mean, this let this be a lesson to all the listeners. Don't gamble.
Absolutely.
Don't do it. You've got inflation right now. It ain't worth it, dude. Just save the money. You're going to spend that anyways, putting gas in your car. Just hang on to it.
Yeah, you're gambling just by going to sleep, hoping that the gas don't get more expensive when you wake up. So
that's no joke.
That's a gamble in itself. But let's do a preview for Game 6. It is going to be in Boston. I don't know if y'all saw the press conference. Klay Thompson is hyped to go to Boston. It sounds like the Warriors really want to win this. Obviously, this series, not the games themselves have been so chippy, but the crowds in Boston have definitely made their presence known, as Boston fans do. I think the Warriors are ready to take this one out, but I mean, what are y'all's thoughts as we get ready for Game 6?
So my thoughts are, I know we just talked about not betting, encouraging our listeners not to bet. I would have a strong suspicion that if you were to bet again on that 0.5 bet, that the guy might, be willing to take it, because I think Steph's going to come out great guns blazing. Game 6 Clay, we all know, is a thing. And then Draymond kind of, I mean, these guys have been in this situation before, so they're going to show up. To me, for Boston, if they really want to win this game and force a Game 7 back in San Francisco, it really starts with their two head guys, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Tatum's had this weird kind of thing in the series where he's shooting better from 3 than he is from 2. I don't know if it's lack of confidence. I don't know if it's something to do with the Warriors defense, what have you. He's really been struggling inside the arc compared to outside the arc. I still think him, whenever he's aggressive and getting to the basket and sometimes kicking it out to wide open looks, that's when the Celtics are at their best. Jaylen Brown, too, whenever he's not turning the ball over. I know they released a stat, him versus Draymond Green, where Draymond's essentially held him to under 30% when Draymond's the primary defender on Jaylen Brown. When those guys are attacking the paint, creating contact, kicking it out to wide open shooters, the Boston Celtics seem to really be able to engage and kind of slow the Warriors' momentum down, especially when they have Steph in that pick and roll action. And plain and simple, they cannot have from the role players what they had in Game 5. I mean, clearly the benches for the Warriors outscored the Boston Celtics. You can't have guys like Gary Payton going off for 15 points and Jordan Poole going crazy, hitting 3-pointers off the backboard to end quarters. The other guys, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, all those guys that kind of surround even Marcus Smart, like those guys have to be able to contribute, not make silly mistakes, not do turnovers, and they can force it back to San Francisco. But I think it really starts with those two guys at the top for me.
I mean, listen, Boston's the two biggest things for me when it comes to Boston, how they're going to force this series to a 7 is they have to be able to cut down the turnovers, right? And we talk so much about the Warriors and how there's times Steph will have, just absolutely mind-boggling turnovers, just careless ones. Well, Boston's the same way, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but I believe they are 1-8 in some frame of time when they turn the ball over. Perhaps that's even this postseason, but they're 1-8 when they have more than 15 turnovers in a game, right? And that's true across any sport, football, basketball, whatever. You turn the ball over, your chance to win diminishes greatly. So from that point of view, yeah, they're going to have to cut down the turnovers quite a bit. Now they're at home, and obviously we know how that crowd has been, and playing at home matters. The other key for me when it comes to Celtics is, I understand he's been hurt a lot in the playoffs, but Robert Williams to me is definitely a key for this team, right? We can see what he does when he's on the court. He completely neutralizes any ability that the Warriors have to drive inside. Your ability to win games when you strictly become a jump shooting team from within the arc and outside the arc is going to diminish greatly. Robert Williams has the ability to kind of shut all that down and force the Warriors into do that. And this is already a team that we've talked about has not been very consistent offensively. He's only going to make it that much harder. The problem is, he's going to have to play over 25 minutes. In a must-win game, I'd imagine that those limits are probably going to be increased a little bit. From the Warriors side, I mean, listen, I one of the first things I noticed when they started that game the other night was the level of intensity. We talked about how this team is older. Draymond was playing like a complete madman. What was it? 2 minutes into the game, he was doing somersaults in the crowd trying to get forced turnovers. Right, that level of intensity is going to be necessary, and this team has been here before. We know that, and they're going to need that. We know this is a hostile crowd that they're going into. So the level of intensity is something that I noticed the other night. They're going to have to continue that to get out to a good start on Thursday. Outside of that, it's kind of a reoccurring theme that we've already talked about in this segment. You're going to have to get production from somebody other than Steph. Whatever Boston did the other night to neutralize Steph worked. Would I bank on that working again? Not necessarily. You alluded to it with would you take the bet on him, the over of him making half a 3-pointer? Absolutely you would. So are they going to be able to neutralize Steph again? Maybe, but you can't rely on that. You're going to have to get other guys involved. For me, Jordan Poole's a great source of offense. He's had spurts where he's been excellent. He's been times where you can't put him on the floor because he's made some really boneheaded decisions and some really untimely mistakes. Defensively, you're going to need Wiggins. Again, the points are great. When he's shooting, when he can score, that's wonderful, but you need his rebounding. You need his ability to switch on and off multiple guys, be it a Tatum, be it a Brown. You're going to need those guys. whatever you get from Clay is strictly icing on the cake at this point. If he shows up and he has a vintage Game 6 Clay type performance, wonderful. I would imagine that your chances to win are going to go up increasingly. But you're going to need that level of intensity from Golden State side, and you're going to have to get production from somebody other than Steph.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another thing is that this Warriors team is different in the fact that, yeah, they have the big three, kind of like Cullen was talking about. They have the big three, but they also have all these young all-stars. Jordan Poole, I think it's very safe to say, is going to be an all-star in the future. James Wiseman, I know he's not going to play in this series, but he's going to be playing in the G League pretty soon with full contact. If we're talking about a fully healthy, fully athletic James Wiseman next year, this Warriors team somehow actually gets scarier with him on the court. They got Otto Porter Jr. starting. They have a lot of these guys. And, we're talking about Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. We're not talking about any just three basketball players that you can just walk in there and replace. But to have these young all-stars to coincide with these guys, these Hall of Famers, it helps your team because it helps on nights when Steph Curry only scores 16 points like he did last night, and you can still get a team win by 10 points. So I think, I had Boston winning it in 6, but I think it's very clear that the Warriors have the momentum. We'll see what happens in Game 6. We'll see if Clay shows up like he normally does, or if we're looking at a Game 7. I think a Game 7 would be, I think, pretty safe to say. I think it'd be interesting because it'd be back at home for the Warriors. So I think the Warriors take this series either way, whether if it's in 6 or 7. I think just the experience that they have had and the coaching experience that Steve Kerr and his staff has had, they know what to do in tough situations. So, it is what it is. We're going to see how it looks after Game 6. But let's go ahead and take it over to the NFL. It is reported that former head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, was offered $100 million to coach the Miami Dolphins. Do we believe this?
Yeah, absolutely. I do.
You want to
go ahead? No, Cullen, I just want to throw that in there. You're free to go.
I agree. I definitely believe that this was the target to not only acquire Sean Payton, the mastermind of all those great offenses that have occurred in New Orleans over the years, but also to try to steal Tom Brady from their fellow Florida rival. I guess you can call it that. Stuff just happens. And I'll almost slipped there, Kevin. But stuff just happens. Payton apparently denied the report saying, I have no clue about Tampa Bay, Miami Dolphin, Tom Brady rumor. My understanding was that there was a request put in or that intermediaries talked. Unlike the rest of you, I heard that story. That is a load of what, in my opinion. I think Sean definitely knew what was going on. And just stuff obviously out of his control kind of derailed that. I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing. Sean Payton's still, in terms of the coaching aspect, relatively young. So he's got plenty of time to do whatever he wants with his life, whether he wants to coach again or not. Would have been a really very interesting if that did come to pass, but unfortunately, it looks like we'll never know what could have happened.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the story goes that the Dolphins' grand master plan was to offer Sean Payton 4 years, $100 million, and make Tom Brady a minority owner, and he was going to come in and play for the team this year. And they were potentially going to try to compensate Tampa Bay to get them a quarterback. Does Tua end up in Tampa? We'll never know, right? And things have a funny way of working out. But from everything that I have heard and what I've listened to and read, and what really kind of put a fork in this whole deal was the Brian Flores lawsuit that took place in February. And that is such a tangled web and mess that could be a completely different show in and of itself. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a really cool story. It's a funny one. It's a really cool what if story. But things have a way of shaking out the way they're supposed to. And do I think Sean Payton will be back in the league? I do. I don't know where.
Cowboys.
Yeah, well, I think he'll do well in TV. I do think that the idea of him coming back and coaching in the near future is very possible. And I could be wrong. Maybe he gets into TV and he likes it and the money's good. And, he works a couple of weeks out of the year and he can do whatever he wants. Do I, and on the flip side of that coin, I think it's very safe to say that Brady will be a minority owner at some point. Now, we know that he's going in to do TV now and calling games for Fox at some point once he retires. I never quite felt like that was where he would end up. I always thought that, maybe Peyton Manning was more set to do the TV stuff. He has now gotten more into the minority ownership and ownership groups and things like that, whereas Tom has gone into broadcast. I thought it would be flipped. But Peyton will be back in the league at some point. But this is a cool what if, what could have happened, but it didn't. And chances are things have a funny way of working out. So,
well, you mentioned the whole what if aspect of it all. I mean, if we did see Sean Payton go to the Miami, then we would have never been able to hear this incredibly. I'm not even going to put any. I'm just going to be objective. We would never be able to hear this quote from Tyreek on Tyreek's new podcast. I believe it's titled it's got
needed to be said.
It needed to be said. Clever name for a podcast, to be honest. If I gotta say so myself, especially coming from a player podcast. But he essentially, says that Tua and Mahomes, obviously he used to play for Kansas City, was the driving force or one of the driving forces of that offense, alongside with Kelsey. But Tua has been getting a lot of flack this offseason, a lot of flack last year with this possible inaccuracy or his strength of throw. And Tyreek, just as he should back up his QB1, basically said, hey, he would rather have Tua throwing the Patrick Mahomes for him just on the accuracy basis alone. So I just kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on this. Do y'all think this is true, or do you think this is just Tyreek trying to hype up his QB1 for the season?
I mean, look, I think it's what any wide receiver should do, right? We've seen Devontae Adams say this in the last week or so about Derek Carr, saying that there's a lot of similarities between him and Aaron Rodgers. Does anybody believe that? No, not really. But this is what you're supposed to do. Now, the difference between what Devontae has said and what Tyreek has said is that every time that Devontae was asked a question about Aaron Rodgers or about Derek Carr, he would always make sure to compliment and lead with something about Aaron first, and then follow up with Carr, right? And in this scenario with Tyreek, like, listen, like Kevin said, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go ahead and ingratiate yourself to your young quarterback. Make sure that he knows that you have his back. There's a new regime, Mike McDaniel coming in. And, this is what you're supposed to do. Does anybody believe that Tua is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes? No, that's also not necessarily what he said. But we all understand. We understand the scenario, what's taking place here. And, Tyreek goes on and he talks about how, he wants people to understand that he's a threat too. And, maybe that there's a possibility that with all the offense and all the star power on that Chiefs team, that Tyreek maybe at times was kind of lost in the shuffle, right? You get a lot of guys talk about Mahomes and Kelsey and guys like that. And Tyreek was always third. And honestly, I think some of that confidence, some of that swagger that he has kind of exuded throughout his career that's kind of rubbed off on Tua, right? We've seen him talk this offseason about his throwing motion, some of the videos that the Miami Dolphins social media team has put out where they're kind of wobbly or they don't look like they're underthrown, and he's kind of pushed back on that, and that's a good thing, right? You're only going to play as well as you feel, right? And maybe some of that's coming from Tyreek, but listen, Tyreek is doing what he's supposed to. He's supporting his younger quarterback and making sure he knows that he's in his corner, and that's really all there is to it. I think it's an interesting talking point, but there's a lot of nothing here in terms of legitimate meaning.
Yeah, and to kind of switch over to another quarterback story, I guess a reemergence, if you will, for Baker Mayfield. It is being reported that the Carolina Panthers are now back in for the Baker sweepstakes, as far as trying to grab him from the Cleveland Browns. As everyone knows, they have Deshaun Watson on a $230 million fully guaranteed contract. That's all we'll speak on as far as that goes. And they also brought in what was the other quarterback they brought in? I cannot remember.
Oh, Sam Darnold.
Yep.
No. I'm talking about Cleveland.
Oh, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett. So a very well respected backup in the league, can win you some games, and so I think it was very obvious that Cleveland was pushing Baker out the door without really doing it. But then we saw in OTAs, they basically were like, hey, you don't got to really show up. So don't even really trip about it. Don't worry about it. So, Cullen, I just want to get your opinion on it. I know the Seahawks aren't in the run for Baker, but I know that they were in the past. And I know you had created some scenarios that might suit Baker the best. I think that the sides would really like to trade, but it's the contract. Who's going to eat the contract? And Sam Darnold's contract, if there is a quarterback swap, who's going to eat that contract, and just how all that works. So, what's your opinion on all this, and what do you think will fit him best as far as scenario and location goes?
Well, so I don't necessarily believe Seattle's necessarily out of it. I don't think they're the front runner, as with the reports of Carolina. The reports saying that they'd like to get him in before minicamp so that he can get acclimated with the team, their offense, stuff like that. I will say, just a quick sidebar here. I'm happy that, speaking of confidence and everything, that Sam Darnold still believes that he can be a starter and a well-respected guy in this league. And, it's just, I mean, you got to love the confidence of these starting quarterbacks. In terms of Baker, I do believe Carolina would be the best fit for him, in terms of the teams, obviously, that are left looking for a franchise quarterback. They've invested money in McCaffrey. They just paid DJ Moore. They've invested in their offensive line. They've got a head coach in Matt Rule, who I don't know if he's necessarily on the hot seat, but definitely needs to start winning some games, showing that, the potential from not only Baylor, but Temple. And I think Baker's their best plug and play option for them. I don't believe Sam Darnold is the answer. And I think, ultimately it will come down to the money, how much of the salary cap Cleveland is willing to eat in order to ship them off of their roster, to kind of get them out. Obviously, I think it was last week where they excused Mayfield from mandatory camp and everything like that. So I think they are at least working with him in that aspect to try to get him to a new home. And to me, Carolina makes sense. And I think it makes the most sense for Baker, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with you here. I think he personally would like to go to Seattle, just with them having DK Metcalf, and the historic success that they've had. But I think that the Carolina Panthers, I think they have some talent that is still up and coming. Last I checked, they still have DJ Moore, correct?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so DJ Moore, he's a really great wide receiver in the league. Robbie Anderson, even though he kind of announced that he might retire soon, which was kind of strange. But he did say that he did not want Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. So we'll see how all that goes. But I think I've always been ironically the Baker supporter. I think that it's dumb on Cleveland's part to go and get rid of a quarterback that brought you a playoff win for the first time, and I can't even remember the date since pyramids were made. I don't even know. It's been a long time. So I think it's kind of messed up on that whole aspect. But hey, I get it. Football is a what have you done for me lately sport. And Baker was hit with some injuries and just different things here and there. And I hope wherever he goes that he finds success and he does do good, because I, unlike some others, believe that Baker Mayfield is a starter in this league and a successful one at that. But as everyone knows, this is a Texas show. This is a show that is in the DFW Denton area of Texas. So, and we have our lucky man, our Cowboys insider, if you will, and Mr. Prater. So, Layton, just take the floor. Tell us everything that Jerry Jones has told you, and tell us all the things that you're not allowed to say. Just spill your guts. Just tell us everything.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Well, listen, Jerry has not talked to me. Jerry does not know that I exist. So today, obviously, we started minicamp today. Getting through that, last time these guys are going to be in the building for a little bit before they get out of there for a couple of weeks, take their vacations, and before they come back for training camp in Oxnard next month. So at this point in the year, we're these guys are just going through install, trying to get guys healthy, get guys to understand the playbook. By the time they get to California for training camp, these guys are really going to be competing for spots. But right now, you want everybody, veteran free agents that have come in, rookie guys that are undrafted. You want these guys to understand the playbook. So that's really where the Cowboys find themselves right now. Obviously coming out of OTAs the last couple of weeks, we had rookie minicamp before that. You've got some guys that have banged up. At this point in time, you obviously know Michael Gallup is coming off ACL surgery back in February. Third round pick Jalen Tolbert has kind of been hurt a little bit. So you've had guys in and out of the rotation a little bit through OTAs and minicamp thus far. But what I want to kind of touch on, and Cullen, please, feel free to jump in. I don't want to steal the floor. There's a couple different spots that I think are going to be really interesting that are going to really breed competition on this roster. And first and foremost, it's got to be the wide receiver group, right? We saw the Cowboys trade away Amari Cooper to Cleveland. They lost Cedric Wilson to Miami. There's a lot of room for competition at that position. Obviously, CD now becomes the de facto number one. We talked about this off air earlier. How is he really going to adjust to that, right? This is a guy who kind of at times was the number 3 receiver at some points when Gallup and Cooper were on the field and he was there with them. He would play the slot, maybe didn't get a lot of attention. And now at this point, he's going to get more attention. He might see more double coverage. He might see more bracket coverage. And, how is he going to adjust to that? Outside of that, at the wide receiver group, there's really not a lot of known beyond that, right? You have Michael Gallup again coming off ACL surgery. James Washington is a veteran guy out of Pittsburgh. You've got the third round pick in Tolbert, but he's from South Alabama. He's kind of been banged up to this part of the year. There's a lot of young guys. There's some guys that have impressed. TJ Vasher is a guy from Tech. He was an undrafted rookie free agent last year, missed due to injury or reserve. He was on the list there. He has really impressed in camp. The Cowboys have really liked his athleticism. This is a guy that was a 2-star athlete at Wichita Falls, had multiple Division I offers from Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, the Mississippi schools, Ohio State, just to name a few. He's impressed a lot. You have a guy like Noah Brown coming back who's played some snaps for them in the past. Simi Fehoko, a guy that did not record a catch last year. He's gotten a lot of first team reps through the OTAs and the rookie, the training camp portion of this point in the schedule. So to me, that's something that really stands out on this roster. There's a lot of unknown there. There's a lot of potential, but it's certainly not a point of strength on this team as we've once seen. I'm curious, and I know you're a Seahawks fan, so try to set that aside here. When you look at this Cowboys roster, to the best of your knowledge, what are some things that you maybe see that could, maybe some things that interest you when you look at the roster?
Well, so you did touch on it, and yes, I am a Seahawks fan. Thank you for bringing that back up. I sometimes just try to put that in the back of my mind, whenever I'm getting a deep thought with it. Getting to the Dallas Cowboys, you ran through kind of their receiving options, and I wanted to ask you this question because I do think there's potential for someone to kind of fill in that number 2 spot and behind CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Do you think it's going to be a case of more schematically, like somebody just, really flourishes in the Cowboys offensive system? Do you think it's going to be the relationship they build with Dak? Or is it simply just going to be, one of these veteran guys just simply stepping up and filling that number 2 role? Because, like you said, without Amari Cooper, without Cedric Wilson, that, next security blanket for Dak, obviously we've got Schultz with the franchise tag that we were talking about pre-show and everything. It could be very interesting, especially if CD sees all those double coverage. Do you personally see something that you believe that could set somebody out to be the number 2, or is it a combination of all those things?
I mean, I think it's going to be one of those scenarios where you could conceivably, when everybody's healthy, I think Gallup is the clear number 2, right? When this guy's healthy, he can put up. He brings a different skill set. Obviously, Cooper, within his time with the Cowboys, was much more the tactician, right? The great route runner. He could go deep, but he could really operate in tight spaces and really was a precision route runner. Michael's kind of the guy where he's going to take the top off the defense. He's going to be your big play guy. Well, you're not going to have him for the first couple of weeks of the season, right? Potentially. As we've gone through camp and, he has been kind of banged up, Jalen Tolbert had, he got out there today and pretty much got the most amount of reps I've seen him. And I've, in my short time I've been here already, there looked like there was a rapport, there was a rhythm there with Dak, which is going to be important. This is a good guy in Tolbert, who's not the world's largest receiver. I wouldn't call him a big body guy, and the Cowboys have a lot of big body guys that play the position, but Tolbert's kind of a different, maybe he fits into that Cedric Wilson kind of mold in terms of just being a slot guy who can kind of play around the field with some big play potential. And he certainly had that in college. But yeah, I think when healthy, Gallup is the clear number 2. The question is, can he stay healthy? We know he's been banged up the last year or so. But outside of that, yeah, you're going to have guys that maybe step in. I think the Cowboys are looking to Tolbert to be that guy. But again, they have options. Tony Pollard could be an option as well. Cowboys have said in the last week or so that they would like to use him, maybe get him some snaps at a receiver role at this point in the season, maybe look into more of that once they get to training camp. Obviously, we would imagine Dalton Schultz is going to be back, whether it's on a long-term deal, whether it's on the franchise tag. So the team has options offensively. I think the last couple of years they've had a wealth of options, and potentially they did not live up to their billing. So now you take some of those options away. You kind of start to look around and be like, okay, outside of CD, where are we going to go with the ball? So maybe there are adjustments that have to be made with Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy in the offensive side of the ball. Maybe there's a little more added pressure on Zeke this year, that offensive line to kind of get right. The offensive line, that's another area of this team that's kind of got some uncertainty that's undergoing a little bit of change. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it's going to be one of those scenarios where everybody's going to kind of have to pull together here, and they're going to have to be greater than the sum of their parts. But there's potential here for sure.
Absolutely. I know Layton Prater, freelance writer of the Dallas Cowboys, joining us on the Fools on Stools podcast. I know we're going to give offense a lot of love because offense is what puts people in the seats, but defense obviously wins championships. And for the Cowboys, they had a resurgence last year, obviously with Dan Quinn, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, the whole crew. Now there are some people who left in free agency. Randy Gregory now plays for the Denver Broncos. Some other turnover with some guys there. I want you to kind of just break down the defense a little bit. And in terms of just from an overall perspective, what should Cowboys fans really be looking for and expecting when it comes to their defense for this upcoming season?
I think the one area that in the last couple of years, Cowboys fans have not necessarily been able to really kind of hang their hat on and feel confident and comfortable about when it comes to the defensive side of the ball is that secondary. They've had trouble with that the last couple of years. Trayvon Diggs obviously had an outstanding year last year with 11 interceptions, but there's a lot of potential in that group too. You have Anthony Brown, you've got Jordan Lewis, Jaron Kearse is coming back. There's guys that this is now their second year under Dan Quinn. These guys really do love Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn really connects with these guys through all phases of the ball, whether it's that front seven or the guys in the secondary. They respond to him really well. So when I look at the secondary with this team, the safeties, the cornerbacks, I look at it and I feel pretty comfortable with that group that's back there. I know Cowboys fans wanted these guys to go out there and make a move for maybe a James Bradbury or maybe some reinforcements, and there's never anything wrong with that. When it makes sense and it's the right deal for the team. But I feel really confident about the secondary. We talked about this pre-show. Obviously, the Cowboys lose Randy Gregory. This is a guy that had 6 sacks for them last year. That's a big deal. Micah, of course, had 13 on the other side, was an absolute monster. Regardless if he's playing linebacker, defensive end, he's going to get his chances to get after the quarterback. A guy that I am very high on, and I've only seen him a couple different times, is Sam Williams. Obviously, their second rounder out of Ole Miss. DeMarcus Ware had 8 sacks his rookie year, right? And that's absolutely incredible. I think for a guy like Sam, if he can kind of come in and help replace some of that production that Gregory's leaving behind, maybe that's 3 sacks. Maybe it's where you just put him in on when it's a passing situation and you can get him in there and tell him to pin his ears back and just go get the quarterback. He can help replace some of that production if you have a healthy DeMarcus Lawrence, right? And obviously he went on that sack rampage last year in the middle portion of the schedule. He wasn't even healthy, right? So you get a full healthy tank. You have a second year in Micah, and he's going to get his opportunities. Sam can kind of fill a role here. He doesn't have to be a world beater. He doesn't have to do it all. But if you can give him a task and just say, hey, just go get the quarterback, I think he is certainly capable of that. The physical traits are there far and away. But yeah, Sam Williams is a guy that I look at that could Cowboys fans could really kind of be excited for in a small dose. And of course, to me, the secondary it's not the world's greatest secondary. I'm not going to say and tell you they're going to lead the league. But it's a group that I think Cowboys fans can feel pretty confident about compared to what they have in the last couple of years.
Kevin, you want to jump in?
Well, I would actually like to get to our baseball topic. We're already running pretty late in the show, and the letter is signed, sealed, and delivered as far as Layton being our official Dallas Cowboys insider. So we'll have him on more often now that he doesn't have so many classes and stuff going on. But we do appreciate you and thank you for that insider information.
Yeah.
Whenever you can, just leak the contracts before they're put out on the Twitter space by Mr. Rappaport or anything like that. So that way the Fools on Stools can get to it first. But
Kevin, I've been there a week. I still don't even know I didn't even find out until today where the bathroom was in the office. So might want to hold your horses on leaking information there.